This is the end, chat. It's finally over. Warhammer 40k is done because a new Tyranid model got released. Incredible! They have announced that the faction isn't being squatted. Unfortunately, to all of our chagrin, we got a new model. I woke up like a kid on Christmas. I'm just so excited about new Tyranids, and we get to talk about that. But first, I want to talk about something else. This is the status when a Bloodsurge move. I don't know, what it's time to be alive. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, I have a knife because I got a package. Ooh. I wanna unbox my little package right here. Don't take that out of context. But what I've been doing is trying something cool, which is that if you look on I have my little backdrop over here, which you unfortunately can't see right now. But I am slowly collecting. I've added a couple to my collection recently, but I am slowly collecting all of the starter box sets from every edition of Warhammer 40k. And this one is not a starter box set. So I'm sorry to say that. However, if this is what I assume it is very cool because it is the expansion box set from Rogue Trader. So this is the Dark Millennium expansion box. So for those who don't know, 40k used to, back in its old Rogue Trader days, or second edition, I think. I think it's second edition, because it is post Rogue Trader. They did a literal expansion set. So they would release the game, and then they would release additional mechanics that would addend the core rules, kind of like they do, like, I don't know, Psychic Awakening and Vigilus and all this stuff nowadays, and 500 Worlds and everything. But this is how it used to look. So, unfortunately, the second edition starter box, extremely hard to get my hands on. And I'm sure I will venture to do that at some point. Look at all these little templates and stuff. Oh, there they are. That's cute. But in the meantime, this is to tide me over as I slowly but surely collect all the boxes to put on my backdrop. So that's pretty fun. That's a little fun little thing. So as I don't know, as the channel becomes more successful, we get to add more boxes to the collection. That's the goal, which is kind of sweet. All right, chat. Let's talk about the death of 40k in the form of a new Tyranid model, because the new Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip datasheet has been revealed to us, and oh my gosh, it's crazy! It's everything's gonna be ruined. It is a terrifying battlefield leader, as you can see. Toughness 5. Created to push forward into enemy lines at the head of a host of bioforms and devastate the enemy. No devastating ones. Just to be clear, it's just a guy. To this end, the Hive Mind has seen fit to give it a variety of melee weapons suited to any task. It's a Tyranid Prime with a Lash Whip. And, oh boy, is this one of the data sheets of all time, chat? The biggest thing to me is confirmation that Tyranids will continue to see release, unfortunately, as we move on through the later stages of 10th edition. They aren't being squatted as a faction, which is too bad, but you know what? We can't all be winners, I guess. This thing is the most decidedly mediocre data sheet I've ever seen in my life. Now, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that this guy's probably going to be an extremely inexpensive character, which is good, because he's kind of mid. He's got that gorgeous Tyranid top line profile, T5, 6 wounds, 3+ save, no invuln. Why would you have an invuln? Invulns are for chubs. It is movement 10, which is good. It does not compete very well with the Winged Tyranid Prime, however. They both have the same leadership ability. In fairness, though, this guy has the good version where it gives your entire unit sustained hits 1, regardless of leading. So he, on all his melee weapons, has sustained hits 1, which is good. However, he misses a bunch of other stuff, like the extra 2 inches of movement and the Vanguard Invader keyword. So if you attach him into Tyranid Warriors, he does not give advance and charge in Vanguard Onslaught. So that's good. He also gives you a Blood Surge move, which is amazing for a unit with a baseline 4+ armor save. So when you lose a model as the result of an attack, your unit's dead. So you could Blood Surge move, but it won't matter because they're already dead. I don't think I've ever been targeted with a Tyranid Warrior unit and had them survive. Now, the thing that they can do is join it to a Termagant or Hormagant unit, which is probably why he's moved 10, which I guess is okay, but like, who really cares? We're not bringing Hormagants or Termagants to deal damage to people, so giving a leadership ability that gives you sustained 1 doesn't feel particularly helpful. But I guess Blood Surge in on Termagant unit could be something sometimes. I don't know. I guess something like that. But what I would like to do momentarily, and I do understand that these two things are not necessarily directly comparable because they're going to be different styles of units and all that stuff. But I would just like to take a moment to compare. Oh, this isn't working very well. I apologize, everybody. But I want to compare the datasheets of Bareric stormbbrow with the winged Tyranid, or with the non-winged Tyranid Prime, the Lash Whip Tyranid Prime, because one of these things is not like the others. These two datasheets are so directly comparable, it's insane. Both of them give the same ability to their unit. They both give sustained 1. Obviously, the Tyranid Prime also gives the surge move, which is, something, I guess. Surge moves are of limited usefulness many times. There's a lot of counterplay to them. They do like force your opponent to consider them, so they have to play around it. But it's much more useful for a unit that is independently dangerous in melee and also survivable. So like a unit like Victrix Honor Guard is a very good example of a unit that can use a surge move really well. And Tyranid Warriors, exactly the opposite. Extremely not. Did you not use the mechanic particularly strongly? So it's a sort of whatever mechanic, but also Bareric has a sort of whatever leadership ability. That's fine. But we can heroically intervene for free. Okay. But the crazy part is to me that these two profiles are basically identical. Bareric has an invuln save. He has a 4+ field opain. They have almost the same melee profile, except he's +2 strength and anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3 and +1 damage. His sweep attack is 2 damage rather than 1 damage. It's strength 4. 2 damage to strength 7 versus 1 damage to strength 4. And the 1 damage attack, there's an additional attack here that the Tyranid Prime has, none of which have extra attacks. So the Tyranid Prime has a million weapon profiles. None of them you could use alongside one another. You always choose one. So the comparison between these two datasheets being released tickles me to no end. Because one of them is very good and has lots of interesting things, and one of them is a Tyranid. It makes me chuckle, Chance. It makes me chuckle. So we're left with is a Tyranid leader who gives the same thing as the existing Tyranid leader, is slower, has less synergy inside most detachments, and is just kind of a goober. Now, I do think there's one situation in which you would take this guy, and it's when you're running warriors explicitly inside subterranean assaults. I think that's like the one time you take them. Because that's like the one place you can actually deliver them. Occasionally you play warriors outside of
Adriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. He doesn't even work in the warrior detachment because keywords turns out he uses that whip on himself. His 9th abilities were better lol.
He doesn't work in the warrior detachment. Well, he joins into warriors, and then you get the bonuses, right? Like, he's a leader. You're not going to take this guy by himself. In warrior bioform onslaught, honestly, I'm going to level with you, chat. I don't even remember what this detachment does. Because it has been... Oh, there it is. It has been a hot minute since we've seen that one going anywhere. Oh, yeah, he doesn't get the invuln. They've got to update that, right? That's going to be an errata. There has to be an errata there. There's no way. Could you imagine that they don't and they're just like, fuck it. Fuck it. He just sucks. Get out of here. You don't get an invuln save. All the stuff is tier warrior units, right? So like you're going to join them into a unit and then have do stuff. Add 2 to the strength characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by the models of your unit. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by Tyranid warriors and wing Tyranid prime models of your unit, but not the fucking Tyranid prime with the lash whip. That's funny. That's very funny, actually. I imagine that those get updated. To be fair, I imagine that they'll change it so where Bioform Onslaught does work with his specific unit keywords. But it is funny that at a baseline, he just has none of the correct keywords.
Adriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. He could have taken advance and charged and or buffed Holmes Gaunts with all the strats.
Yeah, if he was Tyranid Warrior keyworded. I mean, I guess so. But the like, I guess you would get Obsec, like you'd get Obsec. The strength characteristic thing calls out like warriors explicitly. I guess because it only buffs them in melee, so it wouldn't work on Hormagaunts anyway. You get to like reroll wounds of 1. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's a universe where like you could get some interesting synergy if he was Tyranid warrior keyword. I don't know if it's that big of a deal though. In fairness, I have some contention with the datasheet, but like I don't know if that would necessarily be my prime gripe, pun intended. Now I think that the big difference here between this guy and other datasheets is that this guy's probably going to be relatively inexpensive. He's like the existing wearing the wing Tyranid prime's like 65 points. He's probably going to be somewhere in there, in that level. And he's duplicatable. I do think that there's play with him in like Subterranean Assault. I was playing a wing Tyranid prime in my warriors, but you could probably just play this guy. He's slower, but at least his attacks hit harder. The thing that I'm missing in that unit, though, is like +1 to hit, because they give themselves rerolls, and that you have Tyranids have like a trillion ways to give them critical hit keywords. The problem is that they very rarely get to the point of the level of consistency where they're like 2s rerolling 1s to hit. And +1 to hit would have been nice. Obviously, there's like a million things you could do to warriors to make them better. And I don't know if this is necessarily what people were looking for to make the Tyranid warrior unit better. It's a little bit of a baffling release, to be honest. Because it's not that exciting, I think, for a faction that's kind of in the doldrums right now. But anyway, chat. I love it. I love the hype in these articles, by the way. All there's attacks are AP2, chat. Wow. That's truly a dizzying AP characteristic. For a Tyranid unit, AP2, holy shit. And they can get sustained hits. Don't worry about the fact that for some reason, literally every playable detachment in the entire, like basically in the entire codex gives you sustained hits already. So having sustained hits oftentimes ends up being duplicated, but that's okay. And don't forget, he's a synapse creature, so he's actually +1 strength. So really, he's strength 9. Basically, he's going to kill the world.
At Andico donated $1.99 through Super Chat. Why do we never get anything with invul saves?
Chat, that's a silly question. Zoanthropes have invul saves, and that unit never dies. I've never seen a Zoanthrope be attacked by an opposing model and be destroyed. It's too invulnerable because it has a 4+ invul save. The truth of the matter is that if you give Tyranids a baseline invul save on their datasheet, they become too powerful and they must be stopped. So just look at Norn Emissaries, the greatest datasheet of all time. 300 points and you get a 4+ invul save. Wow. How could you possibly beat that? How could you possibly defeat that thing? It's too strong. It's simply too strong. It'll be 75 points or 80. I'm not sure. It's like a super playable 75 points or 80. Honestly, so I think you compare this guy directly to the Winged Tyranid Prime. And the crazy thing about this to me is that we're releasing this I guess it's they're both Tyranid Primes, right? So, to some extent it's well, we have to ape the data sheets a little bit. But it's why are we releasing this almost identical model, right? He passively increases the movement characteristic of your unit, tangentially by being faster, right? And he gives you sustained hits 1. And this guy also gives you sustained hits 1 and makes you a little bit faster. He gives you a blood surge move. Okay, whatever. But he has a 3 damage melee attack instead of an AP 1 2 damage melee attack. This guy is 65 points. And I would be surprised if the Lash Whip Tyranid Prime was significantly more than that. I could see him being 70. At 80, I think it becomes a tough sell because you'll just take this guy. Fuck it. What are we doing? Are we going to take this, we could get a very marginally better melee profile. He's either +1 AP on the same profile or he has the 3 damage swing. The times you're going to use the 1 damage swing feels very rare for the Winged Tyranid Prime, or for the Foot Tyranid Prime. But 90% of the time, what you're taking these guys for is to get sustained hits, right? To push the sustained hits of the movement characteristic, to push the output of the warrior unit. And if he's more expensive than the winged one, you're just going to take the winged one. So if he's more expensive than 65, I don't know, man. So that's a tough sell, which makes it a strange release, in my opinion. I think this is a faction that needs new and interesting things in order to not be sort of a joke. And they just released the same datasheet again. I don't know, chats. I don't know. Also, this guy and the Votan dude are completely overshadowed by the Tau stuff. So I mean, a lot of it's going to be depending on points values, right? We did talk about this, about Bareric. And Bareric compared to the Tyranid Prime is hilarious. It's so funny because he is a strictly better model, right? He's just slower. That's the only difference, right? But in terms of his output and his top line stats, he's a higher toughness characteristic. This little space dwarf versus a 20-foot tall Tyranid. His top line profile and his weapon stats are strictly better, but obviously Bareric's the strength of all these data sheets depends on their points value, and I think no more so than for the Twin Lance, right? So the Twin Lance could very well be incredibly broken if they undercost it. If they're Twin Lance is it's a vehicle unit, so it's not infantry, it's not a leader, so we'll cost it at 185 or something, immediately broken. But realistically, how many points would you play for these guys? I think the answer is 200 to 250 plus. In which case, your perception of them changes quite a bit, right? When you're comparing these guys to a Riptide or more, which I think is a pretty reasonable comparison. They don't do damage at range. They're easier to kill, but they do have more mobility and they do more things up close and personal. So like the 200 plus range is like, all right, fair enough. But if these other characters end up being, in the 60 to 70 point range, obviously it's very different. I do think that Twin Lance is much flashier than all of these things, but there is this narrative that Bareric Stormbbrow is really bad, and I don't understand that at all. It's that blows my goddamn mind. Because this data sheet's pretty good, chat. I don't know. I don't feel like that's a controversial take. I do think it's additionally a non-controversial take to say that this data sheet is mid. Decidedly mid. Lance is 16 wounds with 2+, 4+, great guns. Well, great guns within like 6 inches, right? Because you can't forget, like the Twin Lance they do the shoot and scoot thing. That's a big deal. But also their abilities key, most importantly, when they are right next to you, right? They have to target closest eligible enemy, so they have to be pretty close to you. Most of their ability or most of their weapons have payoffs for being within 9 inches. So a lot of times what they're not going to be doing, which is thank God, is doing like the Torch Star Gambit thing where they up down to be like 30 inches away and gain 1 millimeter of line of sight and then move back out of the line of sight, because they do actually have to move up to engage you. So I do think that the people are not necessarily considering the fact that the Twin Lance does have to be right next to you to shoot you well. That said, I do think, this data sheet's great. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's there's no universe where this is going to be bad unless it's like 280 points or something. It's just way too expensive for what you get. But I do think I do think that people are forgetting the fact that their range characteristics are very short, very, very, very short. Little guys. Bareric is okay as he's under 80 points. I agree with that. Yeah, there's definitely a universe where they cost this guy like they did Beery, where he's like 100 points. And you're like, well, he still moves 6, guys. Like, I'm not that into it. But I agree. I think if he's pointed, pretty reasonably, right? He's in like the 85 point range. I think that he's definitely playable. The other thing, we talked about him when his data sheet got announced, which is that he's independently playable, right? He doesn't necessarily need to have a unit with him, although he does boost their damage output through the stratosphere, which is phenomenal. I don't think that's quite the same with the Tyranid Prime, though. I don't think you play this guy by himself. You could, theoretically, but you're not that interested in it. If they give him like a impact hit, I think he would actually be okay by himself. You're just like stacking 3 damage melee attacks in Tyranids, which is sort of actually everyone in fucking Tyranids is a 3 damage melee attack. Strength 9, AP 2, 3 damage is not exactly a profile the Tyranids are hurting for. It's just fucking every person has one of those. They could have made it maybe that you could just rock these guys and make them independent little beat sticks. That would be kind of cool. But I think you would need to do like impact mortals or something with them for that to be the case. Just hate Tau right now. Brutal. Tau is a very good spot right now for sure. If I do think that there's a universe where we're probably going to see a data sheet in the next week or two, I imagine, and there's a universe where Tau sort of get away with murder, where they nuke Ultramarines and Necrons from orbit, please God, but then Tau are like, hey, we didn't get any changes, so Montcal's going to kill everyone. And you're like, all right, well, I do think Tower, they're a distant third, but they're in the running for the third place spot there. And I think there's probably something that could be addressed with that faction. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I definitely do think that there is a universe where Tau gets like pretty wild, especially if they add a new unit that's incredibly good, especially when it's incredibly good in Monka and Red Cadre, which is already where you want to be with Tau, I think, most of the time. Give normal melee warriors this melee profile? Would that even be better? Because the normal warriors have more attacks and twin linked. Putting them at a strength 9 with no twin linked actually feels like a downgrade. I don't know what the math is there though. I don't know, but it is what it is. I agree that there's definitely concern to be had with Tau for sure. I think this guy is an upgraded winged prime. Fun on death ability never did anything. It's great to have a leader for Hormagaunts. Is it though? Like, in what situation are we like expecting damage out of our Hormagaun unit? Like that's like all these leaders for Gaunts. I get it. I like that they are opening up like play space for leader characters, so they add them to more units. It would be interesting if they like opened it up entirely and you could just be like, you can join them into, I don't know, something stupid like Tyrant Guard. Just like, I don't, just like random bullshit. That actually might be okay with the Blood Surge. I'm talking myself into it. But like the thing is that it feels like a misunderstanding of how we're meant to use Hormagaunts, which is that they are a disruption piece where they trade for objectives and then they all die. Termagants with Blood Surge, is that good? That's like the one interesting thing that maybe there's some play there. Because Termagants are always about this like weird primary objective play, where being able to like manipulate your board presence with them, because they have a reactive move and a Blood Surge at that point, and then also respawning, so like their ability to fuck with your primary objective control in a weird way could be good. I doubt it, because I don't think adding points to a Tyranid unit is necessarily what we want to be doing. But maybe maybe there's something, I don't know. But I don't know about Hormagaunts with leader guys. If Hormagaunts had like a baseline, like actually fun, decent melee profile. If we had the strength 26, damage 30 Hormagaunts, then sustained hits would be good there. But they're like strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. Who cares? Meh. Join a unit of Von Ryan's Leapers. Well, then they'd lose infiltrate, which is like the whole point of that unit. So I don't know about that. Also, do they lose fight first? I think they would. I think that would be a disaster. If you have a non-fight first character, I believe that's how that works. I think fight first works like Scout, where you need the whole unit to have it. Would it be okay if you could join Hive or Tyrant Guard? Hive Guard would be interesting. I don't know. Maybe is sustain hits on Hive Guard actually good? Probably not. I think Hive Guard need anti-monster on their gun, so you don't run into the situation where like you play against Chaos Demons and you just have this dead weight unit of pieces of shit. But sustain hits went on them, maybe. Tyrant Guard, I think, are they're largely a Tyrant delivery system, but maybe there's play there if you give them sustain and a Blood Surge move. It's like interesting at least, but I don't know if it's good. Yeah. Make a Tyranid character that can infiltrate and fight first and join Ron Ryan's Leapers if it does. I guess so. Fair enough. Why is Tyranid Prime with Lash Up a keyword? Because they always keyword datasheet titles for like targeted stuff. Your datasheet title doesn't typically check keyword things, so sometimes they just need to put it in the keyword so that like if they have a stratagem or something that's supposed to be used explicitly with that unit, it works. They like do it with all these, like Bareric stormbbrow is a keyword. The Twin Lance is a keyword. They just do it. All of these, basically every datasheet has its own name as a keyword, just in case. Oh, Raveners. Raveners would be an interesting pick. But again, it's they also have the hyper adapted who just give them fucking who give them sustained hits 1. Why does every Tyranid warrior leader give you sustained 1? Why is that? Why is that the only leadership ability that Tyranids know how to gain? Create a prime balloon with 6 primes of Tyrannocyte. Is the Tyrannocyte still restricted to 1 unit embarking, or is it still monster? Oh no, it is 20 Tyranid infantry models. But it says like the old Hecatan Land Fortress problem, where if you put Tyranid warriors in it, you cannot put a character on them because that's 21. Dude, this faction was written by morons, I swear. What the fuck? Why is a 3-wound Tyranid warrior count as 3 models for the purposes of transport capacity, but like a Terminator counts as 2? What are we doing here? What are we talking about? A Terminator with a 2+ save? Why? Incredible, dude. The anti-synergy of this faction makes me laugh so hard. It's hilarious. Incredible. Lash Boy is good for bashing knights. For basing knights? I don't know. Oh, I see. You put them on the knight base. Yeah. And basically. Pun intended. Basically. Incredible, chat. So anyway, I was kind of excited because I was hoping that we would get like an archetype unlock with this prime guy. What I was hoping that this wasn't was a redux of the Winged Tyranid Prime datasheet, who, if we will remember, has only been around for this edition. So the fact that we have we've already essentially re-released him with a different version is crazy. But that's exactly what we got. I was hoping that there was play here for Tyranid Warriors outside of the detachments where you already play Tyranid Warriors. It doesn't feel to me like he's unlocking anything. He just feels like more of the same. He's just a tomato soup he's tomatoes in a tomato soup in the Tyranid Codex, where you're just adding the same flavor again. And that makes me sad. And I don't know. Maybe it's time to sunset these guys. I'm always saying it, but like, maybe it's just over. maybe we don't need them anymore. Oh, bad. What a time. It's like if Demon Princess got 2 boxes, one with wings and one without wings. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in fairness, like, I don't know. I feel like 90% of Tyranid props are just like 3D prints or conversions these days. It's a weird profile because the only reason that they stuck with the Tyranid Prime for so long in 9th edition was that on the Tyranid Warrior box, they had instructions on how to build a Tyranid Prime, which for a hot minute was like the unit champion for the unit, but it didn't do anything. I think it still is, right? If we go to like the Warrior datasheet. Yeah. So the regular Tyranid Prime is the unit champion for Tyranid Warriors. So, which they have to include because they're instructions on how to build one. And so they keep releasing these like silly data sheets that are characters with them, which I don't understand. I don't understand why they do this. Just cut that guy out. Who cares? But I guess the idea would be like, oh, then people would think that they can build the Tyranid Prime character datasheet out of their Tyranid Warrior box. Don't do that. Buy the $40 character blister pack, who is mediocre at best and basically mostly a redux of the same thing, which is pretty wild. We're about to add basil. We're about to add tomato puree to the soup. God, it's so different now. It's such a different flavor. Did you want another AP2 melee attack, guys? I know the one every time I play Tyranids, you're like, oh man, you know what I'm missing right now? It's like a melee attack that when I attack Redemptor Dreadnought and he AOCs, he saves on 3s. That's what I really wanted. And honestly, that wasn't the experience I was getting in Tyranids. Like, that was the real issue with the faction. Is like, I hate it when I hit my opponent with an AP value that they are worried about failing a save against. All I want to do is hand my opponent saves and then have them pass them all. And the only way I could really experience the true Tyranid, I could experience the feeling of playing Tyranids would be to have more models with an AP2 melee attack. And I'm glad that they finally listened to my complaints about Tyranids and they've given more AP2 melee attacks. That's phenomenal. Honestly, it shows great growth from the design team. I think that's amazing. Oh my gosh, chat. Good stuff. At least they didn't say it was the most devastating weapon of the game. At least they didn't say that it was a devastating weapon, chat. Where did they say that? Lots of weak enemies. Oh, yeah. 8 attacks, doing 1 damage each. What a time to be alive. Look at that. We're going to guys, you ready to devastate the enemy with our AP2? Our AP2 melee attack? I'm ready. I'm so ready. I think it's going to be glorious for them to be devastated. They're certainly not going to roll a save. They would never. They would never, ever. They have to be cooking up a new detachment for Tyranids next slate? Dude, are we expecting new detachments for the rest of the edition? I don't know, chat. Maybe. That would be cool. Subterranean Assault's pretty good, though, to be fair. And, like, realistically, Tyranids still score good. It is like achieving passive income with the Tyranid scoring, to be in reality. But every time you attack with them, you're like, why am I wasting my time? This is stupid. Why am I swinging here? Doesn't kill a Cadian unit. I mean, he almost kills a Cadian unit. He wins on 3s, which is unfortunate. It's like, here's the thing. Is it even superior into a T3 profile to attack with his Lash Whip?
Adriong 6931 donated $2 through Super Chat. Isn't Bareric 8 2 damage attacks plus 2 extra?
Yep. Yeah, Bareric's melee profile is strictly better. His smash attack is strictly better, plus he gets extra. And his sweep attack is the same attack's characteristic, but it basically just like, it's a superior version of the Scything Talons, but it takes the Last Whip's attack characteristic. He is so much better than this datasheet, it's crazy. The release of those two directly comparable datasheets like is hilarious. It's incredibly funny. And people still don't think this guy's good, which is crazy. I don't get it. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Oh yeah, new Iron Warriors theme stuff. Yeah, you're probably right from the new book. Oh, I guess they'll probably get new detachments because all the factions are getting new detachments, right? In the expansion. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess they wouldn't get like purely digital release content, I imagine, but they will probably get the detachments from the expansion set. Sell me 7,500 points of Tyrannus for $50. I'll take it. Hit me up with that.
At Letters from Links donated 20 Swedish krona through Super Chat. Yet again, GW must do more quality assurance frown.
More quality assurance. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't. This isn't like a quality assurance thing, in my opinion. This is just a design. This is like a design issue. It's like I imagine that like there's probably new edition stuff in 500 Worlds and all these things, and they can't necessarily spend the resources on every faction equally. So like, yeah, Space Marines get, Hurons, Marauders, and Masters of the Maelstrom, a bunch of like, dramatically distinct and marginally overpowered data sheets. But Tyranids, like, you can't, I guess we just can't spend the same amount of time on that faction, which I guess I understand. But the sad part to me is the lack of any like creativity on this data sheet, honestly, and to some extent, like similar for Bareric, just like slapping sustained hits one on a unit is not a particularly interesting design space. The part where like MOM has a choice between regenerating models and gaining CP, like it's a very powerful ability, also incredibly good. I think Twin Lance is also like really interesting as a conceptually. They might be overpowered. We'll see. We'll see what points values look like. But they have a lot of unique and interesting abilities. And then this guy's just like, hey, you get sustained hits one. Cool, man. You mean the thing that half of the leaders in the faction do? Cool, dude. Sick. It's very safe. It's very safe design. Like they're like, we don't want to overpower the faction. So instead of doing anything new, we'll just give them a duplicate of an existing data sheet. It doesn't do anything else, right? We're not giving advance in charge. We're not giving, Lance or something. He's just a fucking guy. He's just this big goober. who directly copies an already existing datasheet. I don't know. What if you could like? What if you got Lance and you could dual attach the other prime? That'd be cool. Like, and then you had like 2 characters and they had synergistic abilities, and then you could build like Tyranid Warrior Death Stars. They wouldn't be good because you'd spend 150 points on characters for a shitty 4+ save unit. But you could have a unit that hits like a truck. That'd be pretty sweet. We didn't do that though. We just gave him the same leader ability and then like rolled him out. All right, cool, man. It is what it is. Lack of creativity is 10th edition in a nutshell. We don't want to overpower a faction. Also, new Catan. Yeah. This was one of the data sheets not designed by the marketing department. That's for sure. To be widely overpowered on release. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. We could, if you could dual attach them, you would call them the Twin Lance. Incredible. Interesting. So anyway, chat, that's the new Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip. I'm excited for this model to release and do nothing for another 3 years. And no one will play him, which is going to be sad because I own too many Tyranid Warriors and I want to use them. But I mean, I guess he is, in some cases, he is better than the Winged Tyranid Prime, assuming that he's not more expensive. Like I said, I think in Subterranean Assault, if you're delivering warriors, they are good in that detachment, and I'll die on that hill. Because like having strength 6 twin linked melee attacks is actually like really is pretty unique inside the Tyranid faction, which is really sad to say that the most impressive melee unit in the entire fucking army is strength 6 AP 2 1 damage. Cool, man. But having strength 6 melee attacks is very important, especially in the metagame right now. And so being able to deliver these guys out of a hole with a dude who hits harder than the Winged Prime does, which is good, because the Winged Prime is kind of mid when it comes to hitting people with his little talons. AP 1, 2 damage, non-twin linked is kind of sad. So at least this guy hits a little harder when he gets in. But again, if he's more expensive, then you just like, fuck it, leave him at home. You know, I have other ways to gain sustained hits 1. Who cares? And great, you know, he's faster on the table too. Pretty wild. If he was 40 points, he might get used. I mean, I guess that's true. You're not wrong. There are universes in which this guy is dramatically undercosted, and he's good because he's too cheap. But he is character keyworded, so you have to run the gambit where you might just give up assassinate if you run a bunch of them. Like there are downsides to taking him.
Johnny 5477 donated $4.99 through Super Chat. After Blades of Ultramar, Grizzled, Blood Angels SEO, and now Catan, everyone's tired of the best thing in the game being whatever came out last.
I agree with that. I'm also tired of that, for sure. But I think the goal shouldn't necessarily be for the new things to be the best thing. And it is unfortunate that the new things are tending to be dramatically better than the other ones. Like the power creep is crazy right now. But what I think, what I was hoping for, and what I think that a lot of people, I would hope were looking for in these new releases was new, like creative things, right? Maybe not necessarily powerful, but different. And this is the definition of not different. Viable at 50? It'd be okay if it was 50. I don't disagree with that. What about Vanguard Onslaught? He doesn't have the keyword. He's actually worse in Vanguard Onslaught. Because he's not a Vanguard Invader. So he doesn't give your warriors the keyword. So he's just a distinct downgrade from the Winged Tyranid Prime, which is unfortunate. Do I not think that 10th was like 9th in terms of power creep? 9th's power creep was like dramatically worse, I think. As much as shit as I give 10th edition for being uncreative, I think that I have a lot of rose tinted glasses, and I will admit this freely. For the final period of 9th edition, there was a period in 9th right at the end It was post World Eaters release where they did a balance update and the game was like wide fucking open. Like a bunch of different shit could win. The World Eaters Codex was like super cool and thematic, but not overpowered. All of the really super dumb stuff had been toned down, and it was like super diverse, and everyone had like a million cool archetypes they could play. And that was like that's where the game should be angling to be, right? And if they hit that and then like released sort of mid power level stuff that they could then buff if it ended up coming out too weak, that's where the game should be at. But obviously, 9th edition throughout the entirety of the edition like started with 8th edition codexes, and this is always how it goes when they release a new edition but they don't update data sheets. They release the edition, and your faction power is a combination of your faction's power at the end of the previous edition plus any bizarre mechanics that get broken by the game. So like a good example is like if you had double move mechanics in 9th edition, you could still do them and perform actions. If you got them from 8th edition into 9th edition, you could still typically do them and perform actions. So a lot of like double move mechanics made you incredibly good at scoring. So for a hot minute, there were a bunch of factions in the game where army archetypes or units that got like wildly overpowered for no fucking reason, just because like it was a rules oversight. And then from there, the power level just skyrocketed in 9th. And I imagine that if they keep the data sheets, that's what's going to happen in 10th edition. I have to hazard a guess, because they start releasing new books that are designed specifically to play in that edition. So they have a bunch of like, they have a bunch of mechanics that work in concert. So in the comparison between the two, we can complain about Catan shards and stuff all we want, but the situations like the Drukhari or Adeptus Mechanicus releases in 9th edition were fucking disastrous. Or Tyranids. Tyranids were also insane. Absolutely fucking pants on head. But they were devastating to the metagame. And we haven't, outside of a couple of examples, we haven't necessarily had that in 10th edition. The level power creep is definitely lower. However, we haven't really hit that period. There's been a couple periods where like the meta's really open and it's cool and stuff. But the number of like army archetypes in each faction has been relatively low. And we haven't, I think, hit that period in 9th, like we did it at the end of 9th edition, where it's just like, it's just broken open, and it's, it's interesting and cool. And also most factions can see play. What are we going to hit that? I don't know. It probably doesn't matter at this point, but it is what it is. Also, Guard Codex, also Quins. Yeah. Harlequins is probably the worst. But in fairness to Harlequins, they did nuke them from orbit instantaneously. Like, Harlequins released, Adepticon was a Harlequin mirror match in the finals, and they just immediately destroyed the faction. They were like, nope, nah, not you. You are not allowed to be this good. In fairness to them, they did do that, which is nice. There were a couple periods, like Drukhari was good for like it was like a 5 or 6 month period where Drukhari was like kind of insane. Adeptus Mechanicus hit pretty hard kind of quickly. Like they did nerf things reasonably quickly. I don't think it was fast enough, but the issue was like they just released stuff that was just like patently overpowered. And it wasn't even necessarily overpowered from like like there wasn't like a weird combination of rules that they didn't oversee. It was just like, these data sheets are too good and too cheap. Like, what the fuck are you doing? In most cases, I think. I think there are probably some instances where like Tau was weird because they had like mass lethal hit, full reroll, indirect fire, which is like, all right, if you like comboed together, it was like super powerful. But a lot of the cases were just overpowered codexes. I don't think we're going to see that in the future. I think they understand now that like releasing things wildly too strong is not ideal, especially new codex releases. Like Death Guard was the only one in 10th edition. I'm sure there's other examples, but that's the one off the top of my head that I was like, that when that released, it was just like, whoa, this is crazy. What are you doing? Most of the other ones have been kind of milquetoast on release, to be honest. Lost whole units in the Psychic phase in 9th edition Tyranids. I know, it was sick, dude. No, the Maliceptor combo was kind of nuts. As much as I love the Psychic phase, I will admit, the Maliceptor combo was too strong. Also, Zoanthrope units, probably too strong. D3 plus 3 or D3 plus 6, Smites, mortal wounds off smites, probably too many. But I do think I miss like being able to apply buffs and stuff in the psychic phase, and then having that be like an interesting tension between the two armies. It is what it is. Somehow local communities and discords cannot agree how fight on death works with leaders. Interesting.
Letters from Links donated 20 Swedish krona through Super Chat. GSC releasing together with sororitas was painful.
That is true. My cat's accosting me, Chant. Did Psychic Scream cast through Link? I don't believe so. I think Psychic Scream always hit closest to enemy. The difference is that it shot through walls. It didn't care about line of sight. Is that GSC releasing in they released alongside Custodes in 9th edition, right? It was like Sororitas were like actually, yeah. I guess I'll take it back a little bit. Sisters were actually super dumb on release. I do I remember that now. Bringers of Flame was pants on head for sure. That was a little silly. That's a good call out. Gene Sailor cults are like, I have Outlander Claw. I have OC 2 bikes. Cool, man. Having a great time. How do I feel about the lack of extra attack of the Tyranid Prime's weapons? I think that the would be too good if they had extra attack. I think it sucks that they don't have one weapon that's like a dedicated extra attack, and then the other weapons are like lower power to compensate. Like this, he's got like 2 scything talons and then one of each. Wait, why does he only have? Oh yeah, I guess he has 1 rending claw and 1 scything talon. I guess it's interesting. But you could be like choose between rending claw and whip, and then you get the scything talons as extra attacks. Like I could see that. And then you just balance them around that. It's unfortunate that he doesn't do that, but I mean I get it. You can't give him like 12 melee attacks. I think, in my opinion, that would probably be too good. Well, what am I talking about? It's Tyranid. It would still be bad, but like, I could understand that them not wanting to like give him too much stuff going on. In 11th edition, there are no extra attacks, and you can just do all the attacks. I doubt that. I don't super love the extra attack mechanic. It's games are like 40K in general is just a game that exists on legacy rules, like legacy mechanics. And extra attack, I think, is definitely a symptom of that, because it is based on the fact when you had the mechanic where you had an attack characteristic and then you choose a weapon to use the attack characteristic with, and then they needed extra attack to like balance around that fact. But it's weird that they treat melee attacks and ranged attacks so differently. Like it's crazy when you compare like a melee unit to a ranged unit, and a ranged unit has 7 guns and can shoot all of them. But a melee unit chooses 1 weapon. It doesn't really make sense, because if you're in situations like this where you want them to only choose 1 profile, you can just make it a split profile, like like a plasma gun or whatever, right? When you're making an attack with this weapon, choose one of these 3 to attack with, and then you don't have to print extra attacks again. You can just print multiple melee profiles. So if we want Bareric to attack with 2 things, we don't need to make an extra keyword for it. You just be like, here's the split profile on his axe. You can choose one of these, and then you attack with the second thing. Like, it's bizarre that it uses a fundamentally different mechanic than ranged attacks, despite everything else between melee and range like basically being the same. It's just weird. It's just super weird. And it's the same thing for these guys, right? It's like we have to write extra attacks and we have to build this keyword into these weapons so that you can use them alongside this pulse pistol. But why don't we just let you attack with all your weapons? You know, like why are we bothering with this extra hoop to jump through? It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. It's conceptually bizarre. It could be the fact that, like, you know, they're going to carry this over in 11th edition or whatever, but I don't know. It's a legacy rule, and they do love to keep those. It's like a swipe and a street profile for sure, yeah. So I'm saying the Tau unit has better melee than Tyranid melee. Yeah. Like to some extent, their weapon skill 4. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily fair to say, but I will say that they have more. I don't know. They have more. They attack with more weapons than that guy does. The comparison's not ideal because these guys are probably going to be a very expensive vehicle unit, and this is like a little character who's going to cost 60 points. So I think that the independent epic hero, vehicle characters are allowed to have superior stats to the one infantry guy. I think that's probably appropriate. If these guys outperformed like a hive tyrant in melee, I think you'd be like, all right, what's going on here? This is crazy. But you know, they don't. So that's good. I feel like there are melee weapons that do have different profiles. Yeah, I mean, there's good examples. The example I remember for when the Codex came out, when we were like, how does this actually work, is like Guilliman. Because Guilliman has his two melee weapons. He has his devastating sword and he has his hand. If you let these attack together, that's crazy, right? Like, that's too much. So you have to make him choose one. But you could just write it like he chooses one, right? You don't have to write the entire game around Guilliman having two different, like, dramatically different melee profiles. Like, it's okay. It's okay, guys. We can exist in an edition that isn't designed around Ultramarines. We're fine. How many points do I think is fair for the Prime? I think he's going to come in at the same cost as the Winged Prime. And if he doesn't, then I think we have a problem. That would be my guess. He is slower than the Winged Prime. He doesn't have as good keyword support as the Winged Prime, but his melee profile is better. And his leadership abilities are better, honestly. Like, having a surge move is better than not having a surge move. Like, so it's a side grade. It's a side grade from the Winged Prime. The problem is it's such a side grade that it's like they're mostly interchangeable data sheets. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like he needs to exist necessarily. We could just roll those two into one and then call it a day. So anyway, chat. That's the Tyranid Prime of the Lash Whip, one of the data sheets of all time. Tyranid players, get ready to win every GT. I hope you're ready to win games trivially. This is basically the Nightbringer, but a bug. Thanks everyone for coming hanging out today. That was it's a little short stream today because we don't have much else going on. I might be live on Twitch later. I'm not sure yet. I haven't been live on Twitch at all this week because I've just been like vibing and working on other projects. But maybe I'll hop on, get a game or something. Yeah. Oh no, Tyranid Prime is gonna make it too powerful, too strong. So I'll see you all on Monday at the very least for our regularly scheduled broadcasting. Get ready for some best armies in 40K. Get ready for some Monday Mayhem. We're going to talk about all sorts of bullshit. It's going to be great. And I will go put my new Dark Millennium on my shelf over there. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. Keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming. And I'll see you in the next one.